Smitty here. What I got for you today is a little something different. I'm not much of a DIY or mechanically inclined guy, but what I'm going to try to do is I have two quadcopters here. The Mould King Super S 33041, which is a great little quad. It's cheap, it flies great, but suddenly stopped responding to the transmitter, so it won't even bind. And then I've got this JJRC H6c, which I will have a video posted up here where you can see where this was eaten by my friend's Phantom 3 Standard, and there's not much left, but the board seems to be intact. And so hopefully what I'm going to do is transplant this board into that quadcopter, and if it works, it should be pretty cool. So if you see this video, then it worked, okay? And we'll get started. Okay, I got the H6c board removed from the body, and I desoldered the motors, and that's the camera module right there. So I'm going to have to figure out how to mount the board and the camera board and be able to get the camera mounted there in the front. So that's the challenge. So next we'll be taking this guy apart and desoldering the board and removing it. Okay, so the next step, I've got the Mould King opened up, and the next thing that I need to do is unsolder the motors and the LEDs, and then we'll move on with the next step. Okay, the board is out on the Mould King. Next step is to figure out how this is going to fit in there, and if I can find a way to make this camera work. I wanted to maybe drill a hole in the front of this canopy here and see if I could not hot glue it in there, and maybe I'll put the camera board here, and I'll use this part from the JJRC that is what the board was attached to. So we'll see. Okay, so the next level is here. What I did was took the board mount from the JJRC, and I put the camera module underneath, and those screws actually kind of lined up with the board. I had to file some things down and stuff to make it fit, but then I hot glued the wires in and put the camera module in the front. I kind of drilled a little hole there and kind of hot glued the camera module in. It's kind of pointing a little bit downward more than I would like, but the ribbon cable is super short and you got these posts in the way, and so yeah, it's all part of learning, I guess. So the next stage is to solder the motor wires back in, and then I'm going to wrap these LEDs wires up and just probably tape them in here or something, just in case I ever want to use them again, since this board has the LEDs, the red and blue, actually on the board, so hopefully be able to see it through the body. But so we'll get to the next stage and I'll check in. Okay, so next level complete. I have the motors soldered in. Connect the battery. Test. Okay, and then I'm using the tarantula controller, which is a huge improvement over the Mould King. So, and it binds. Looks like all the motors are spinning, so that's a good sign. One hitch that I did run into is I didn't realize that access to the SD card on the H6c, it was on the bottom, but since this is kind of inside and lifted up, what I'm probably going to end up having to do is cut out the battery compartment here, and then probably use Velcro or something to hold the battery in if I want to have access to putting an SD card in the bottom. So mostly I want to get it together and try and fly it then I'm going to clean up these wires a little bit, and we'll go from there. Okay. Okay, well, surgery was successful, and she lives. Oops. The battery thing is kind of finicky, but she binds to the tarantula transmitter, and she flies. I mean, I can fly good.
Okay, so after getting it all together and flying it a couple times, I had a problem with the battery connector. I didn't secure it on the inside, so I had to take it apart and re-secure the battery connector on the inside, but after that it's good. And then I also realized that I couldn't access the SD card, so I couldn't really use the camera. So what I thought I'd do is just modify the battery bay and that I'd be able to reach the SD card slot, but after using a Dremel and taking these pieces out, I realized that the SD card slot is on the side, and so in order to reach that I'd have to cut a big hole in here, and not even sure I could reach it with my fat fingers to get it in there. So I think that cutting a big hole would compromise the ruggedness of it, and probably would crack the body if it crashed. So I just decided to kind of give up on that idea for now. Maybe later I'll revisit it. But so she's all together, and I'll do a little flight footage on it, maybe a little night flight or something, and show you that it works.
So after all that taking apart and putting back together again and test flying, I managed to burn out a motor before I got any test flight footage, so I should have known. Anyway, so no flight footage in this video. Put a subsequent video up after I get the motors in that I ordered, and we'll take it for a flight, and it should be good. Smitty out.